Millions of people have listened to The Strangest Secret. Millions have heard its famous message. Millions have repeated its most memorable line. And yet, most never achieved the results they hoped for. Why? Was the principle wrong? No. Was the message incomplete? Not exactly. The problem is that most people heard the words, but missed the deeper meaning hidden beneath them. In fact, if you study the lives of people who truly transformed themselves after hearing The Strangest Secret, you'll discover something fascinating. They didn't simply understand the message. They understood something else. Something most listeners completely overlooked. Something that Earl Nightingale spent the rest of his career trying to teach. And today, I want to share it with you. Because I believe there is a missing half to The Strangest Secret. Not a contradiction. Not a correction. A missing half. A deeper layer. A principle hiding in plain sight. And once you see it, you'll understand why some people change their lives after hearing The Strangest Secret, while others remain exactly where they are. Most people remember one sentence: we become what we think about. It is one of the most quoted statements in the history of personal development. And rightly so. It is true. Profoundly true. But here's what few people ever stop to consider. If we become what we think about, why do so many people think about success and remain unsuccessful? Why do so many people dream about wealth, yet stay financially stuck? Why do so many people desire a better life, but never seem to create one? If the principle is true, and I believe it is, then there must be something else at work. There must be another piece to the puzzle. And there is. But before I reveal it, let's examine something important. Imagine a ship leaving a harbor. I've used this example many times because it illustrates one of the most important laws of success. The ship's captain knows exactly where he intends to go. The destination has already been chosen. The course has already been plotted. Storms may arise. Currents may shift. Unexpected obstacles may appear. But the ship eventually arrives because it has a destination. Now imagine another ship leaving the same harbor. No destination, no course, no objective. What happens? Nothing mysterious. It drifts. Wherever the wind pushes it, wherever the currents carry it. Most people live this way, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack potential, but because they lack direction. And this is the first lesson of The Strangest Secret. A definite purpose. A clear destination. A worthy ideal. Without one, life becomes drift. With one, life acquires power. But here's where most listeners stop. And here's where the missing half begins. Many people assume that once they choose a goal, success is only a matter of waiting. They think the secret is positive thinking, positive feelings, positive visualization. But that was never my message. I never taught wishful thinking. I never taught fantasy. I never taught magic. What I taught was a law. And laws operate through processes. Not wishes, not hopes, processes. A farmer understands this. He does not walk into a field and say, I wish for a harvest. He plants, he cultivates, he waters, he protects, and then he waits. The harvest comes later. Always later. The harvest is the effect. The planting is the cause. Success works exactly the same way. And this brings us to the missing half. The missing half of The Strangest Secret is this. You do not get what you think about. You become what you think about. And once you become that person, the results follow. That is the distinction most people miss. They focus on what they want. The successful focus on who they must become. and those are entirely different things. Let me explain. Suppose two people hear the strangest secret. Both decide they want financial freedom. Both write down a goal. Both become excited. Both imagine a brighter future. The first person asks, "How can I get more money?" The second asks, "Who must I become to create more value?" The first is chasing results. The second is pursuing transformation. One may become frustrated. The other becomes unstoppable. Because success is not something you pursue directly. Success is something you attract through the person you become. Think about every truly successful individual you've ever admired. Did they become successful because they wanted success? Of course not. Millions want success. Millions want wealth. Millions want freedom. Desire alone explains nothing. What separates extraordinary people from ordinary people is not desire. It is development, growth, discipline, character, persistence, the willingness to become more than they currently are. This is why so many people misunderstand goals. They think the purpose of a goal is achievement. But the real purpose of a goal is transformation. The goal gives direction to your growth. The goal forces you to develop new abilities, new habits, new levels of discipline, new ways of thinking. And in that process, you become a different person. That person then produces different results. The transformation comes first. The reward comes second, always. Notice something remarkable. When I define success, I never defined it as money. I never defined it as possessions. I never defined it as status. I defined success as the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Why? Because success begins before the reward appears. The moment a person commits to a worthy ideal and begins moving toward it, success has already begun. The bank account may not show it yet. The world may not recognize it yet. The evidence may not be visible yet. But internally, something important has already happened. Growth has begun. Transformation has begun. And transformation is the true source of success. Most people become discouraged because they are measuring the wrong thing. They measure outcomes. The successful measure progress. They measure growth. They measure improvement. They measure who they are becoming. And because of this, they continue long enough to achieve results. Think of a seed. When you plant it, nothing appears to happen. Days pass, sometimes weeks. The soil looks unchanged. Yet beneath the surface, life is developing. Roots are forming. Systems are growing. Preparation is occurring. The visible result arrives much later. Many people quit because they mistake invisibility for failure. But nature never works that way. Growth always happens before evidence appears. Success follows the same law. Now let me tell you something that may change the way you see your own life. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you are becoming someone. The question is not whether change is occurring. The question is what direction that change is taking. Are you becoming more disciplined or more distracted? More courageous or more fearful? More valuable or less valuable? Because the future you desire is hidden inside the person you are becoming today. The marketplace rewards value, not wishes, not intentions, not dreams. Value. And the only way to create more value is to grow, to learn, to improve, to expand your capabilities. This is why personal development has always been the foundation of achievement. The greater the person, the greater the contribution. The greater the contribution, the greater the reward. This is the lesson most listeners miss. They hear, "We become what we think about," and they assume the destination is the reward. the money, the business, the recognition, the achievement. But the real destination is transformation. The money is secondary. The achievement is secondary. The reward is secondary. The primary achievement is the person you become while pursuing the goal. That person is capable of creating results again and again and again. Have you ever noticed how some individuals lose everything and rebuild it? Sometimes more than once. Why? Because success was never in the circumstances. Success was never in the opportunity. Success was never in the money. Success was in the individual. The character remained. The discipline remained. The mindset remained. The value remained. And from those qualities, new results emerged. So let's return to the famous statement. We become what we think about. Yes, absolutely. But now you can see the deeper meaning. The thought itself is not the reward. The thought initiates transformation. The thought influences behavior. Behavior becomes habit. Habit becomes character. Character creates destiny. That is the complete process. That is the full law. And that is the missing half. If there is one idea I hope you remember from today's message, it is this. Most people focus on achieving their goals. Few focus on becoming the person capable of achieving them. The first group spends its life chasing results. The second group creates them. Because success is not something you get. Success is something you grow into. It is the natural consequence of becoming more valuable, more disciplined, more purposeful, and more capable than you were before. That is why the goal matters. Not because it guarantees a reward, but because it transforms the person pursuing it. So the next time you hear the words, we become what we think about, remember the missing half. Remember that thought alone is not the secret. The real secret is what those thoughts turn you into. Because the greatest reward of any worthy goal is never the thing you achieve. It is the person you become along the way. And once you understand that, you no longer ask, how do I get what I want? You begin asking the question that changes everything. Who must I become? And that is where extraordinary lives begin.